Good afternoon. Welcome along to another Quintech webinar. I'm Matthew Tucker, and today I'm here to talk to you about cybersecurity, the fundamentals of it, essentially, without getting into too much detail. I've got a presentation for you, and we're just going to go through those details. If you ever get any questions, you can just put into the chat. You can drop me a direct message through LinkedIn. My contact screen will be up at the end, and more than happy to answer any questions that you've got and take it from there. So, as I said, I'm Matthew Tucker. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Quintech, and we are a managed service provider. Today, all we're trying to do is go through the fundamentals of cybersecurity and hopefully give you some information that you guys are going to find useful. So without further ado, let's get started. So today's agenda, it's a structure to provide an overview of cybersecurity. We'll begin with introducing its key concepts, and we will go through things like common cyber threats, cybersecurity technologies and tools, so what we utilize or what you can utilize, specifically things like network security, application security, touching on data protection and privacy, user awareness and training. It's a really valuable tool, and it's a really valuable asset for you to have. Incident response and management, and then future trends in cybersecurity. Obviously, the present landscape in mind, AI plays a huge role. So, as we said, let's dive in. So, history and evolution of cybersecurity. Realistically, the first concept or the first conversation around viruses, Trojans, etc., was presented by a mathematician in the 40s, late 40s, 1940s. And the first paper was published in the 60s. I think it was 66 actually saying that. However, it shows how early this thought process based on maths was available to understand the concept of what a worm was, what it did. The very early worms or viruses didn't actually try and disrupt anything, as in they weren't themselves malicious. All they did was self-replicate to use up disk space, which then caused an issue. We started sort of seeing activity on those, sort of developing those through floppy disk transmission in the 70s, 80s, believe it or not. And actually, obviously, with the establishment of the World Wide Web and email specifically, that really kindled that sort of evolution. So attack methods have become increasingly sophisticated. They're adapting to these technological advancements, and they're targeting, I'm going to say, vulnerabilities. So those vulnerabilities might be within the software that you use or your network itself, your website, for example. Cybersecurity's defenses have obviously had to evolve significantly, and we can talk about things like firewalls, encryption, etc., as we go through. So let's get into it. So common cyber threats, really simple. So let's drop into these. So we have malware threats. We have a malware is like this early worm that I was speaking about earlier. So, and essentially it's designed to infiltrate your system. So the advancement of it just self-replicating itself is actually now it's designed to do something nasty, and that nasty can be anything from corrupting files, stealing sensitive information. So, and it's trying to do that through this sort of software that's trying to find certain things that it can jump on into. And then essentially, if we think of malware threats as disrupting the system, that's a good place to start. So phishing scams, these are where users are tricked into giving out sensitive information one way or another. Again, I've got something that I'll come back to on this, which will explain what that is. And then lastly, ransomware. So malware, disrupt the system, phishing scams, tricking users into providing sensitive information or giving it out. And then ransomware attacks, locking data, your data, and that's typically on your system plus your backup. And again, we get onto that later on, until you pay a ransom. The problem with this is that only 30% of people that pay a ransom get any proportion of their data back. Typically, it's not actually all of it. Second to that, if you are lucky enough to get your data back, how are you actually going to make sure that that ransomware has now gone from your system? And again, that's something that needs to be thought about. All of these are creating some form of disruption for you. So methods of attack and social and exploitation even. My favorite one to go through is social engineering. So, and basically they're trying to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential information, sometimes leading to unauthorized access, but actually sometimes it's just as simple as something that's a financial want. So I know of a very good incident where an MD of a company was in Vienna at a conference, and he posted on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it was, that he was enjoying this conference with one of the partners of the business in Vienna, and it was lovely. So next thing that happens is his accounts department get an email. Hi, so-and-so, this is me, person's name. As you know, I'm away in Vienna, but I've been locked out of my bank because I locked out of the company bank because the app doesn't like the fact that I'm abroad. Can you transfer me £5,000 to my personal bank details? And these are them. Signed from the managing director. Looking at that email, it looks legitimate. The only thing that stood out with that is actually some of the vernacular in there. The person that it went to knew that the MD does not speak like that. So she did the right thing, phoned him to double check, and the answer was, no, I haven't emailed you. The reason I know that really well is because that's what's happened here. So people have tried to use that exploitation to create something for money to be passed elsewhere. And if you're not aware of it and you're not really in line with it in terms of these things can happen, it's very easy for that. And I can give 5 examples probably off the top of my head where I know that's happened to businesses, and it just doesn't need to. So social engineering. It's a very sort of useful piece of information to understand that if you are a third party and you fall for a phishing email, it's not just you potentially that can affect, that can actually go through into your supply chain. And that's something that's really important to understand, is it can affect your whole supply chain. And if you're part of that supply chain, that's why people target you. They want to get to their target, and you are a jump in that way. Software vulnerabilities, so we call them CVEs. So essentially, the Windows Patch Assurance Report highlighted missing patches on several computers. These actual missing patches can be used by attackers to gain access to your systems. And in this case, what they're doing is they're looking for computers on the web that do not have these updates already done. That means they know they can just look for them, send out this information, and it will automatically find these ones and go into if it can. So again, that's something that's really important to understand. And then denial of service attacks. Denial of service attacks. This basically is done by trying to overwhelm a server, making sure that it can't respond to the number of requests that are coming into it, and consuming its resources. So it makes it unable to respond to legitimate requests, but also it actually opens up a real problem in terms of what it can or cannot respond to. So very simple-esque, but very, very disruptive. So if I now move on to the next one. So some case studies, Equifax breach. So a couple of cases here. The Equifax breach was in 2017. It exposed data of millions of people. It highlighted the vulnerabilities in personal data protection. I wanted to use Equifax because they are, in the UK anyway, one of the big 3 E's, as they used to be called. Experian, Equifax, and I've forgotten the other one, which is really good, but there's 3 of them. And basically what they do is they collect all the credit reference information in the UK. So Core Quick, it used to be called eData. There we go. So those 3 companies process everyone's details in terms of credit reference. So they hold a vast amount of information on you. For Equifax, which were the 2nd largest of those companies, to actually have that taken away and put into the public domain is shocking. Very, very scary indeed. Another one is the WannaCry ransomware. And essentially, this affected computers worldwide, and we're talking thousands of them. So essentially, what this did, it demonstrated the need for security measures in a worldwide environment. So if you've got a worldwide business, that's how this transfers around. One PC here going through to a network to communicate with another PC in another network somewhere else that's part of the same group. And this was a massive transfer of that type of information. So analyzing these cyber attacks allows organizations, not just them, but everyone, the community, to actually improve their security protocols and prevent future incidents. And that's really where we want to get to with it. So let's have a look at some cyber security technologies and some tools that we can actually use to enhance cyber security. So firewalls. The function of the firewall is to create a secure barrier between trusted and untrusted networks. So your network is the trusted network and the outside world is the untrusted network. Intrusion detection systems continuously monitor network traffic for suspicious activities. So you create a better posture by looking at what's coming in and out. So it's not just your standard, oh, there's a virus, it's what's going on here. And then we've got intrusion prevention systems that take action against a detected threat. So they actually look at it and block it, sandbox it, hopefully, before it can actually get into the system and cause harm. So we actually, one of the products that we use is FortiGate. FortiGate firewall can be configured by us remotely, and we can control within that firewall these detection systems, prevention systems, etc. Also, as things get updated by various software components of that, they're updated in real time. So gone are the days of maybe having something like a Tech that you update once a year. This is, as it happens, it gets updated and you're keeping up to date with everything that you physically can. And also we can then set the parameters of these different detection and prevention systems to help you with that. Another one now is not just antivirus and anti-malware software. These are really sort of progressing now. We use an AV with an EDR, excuse all the letters, so endpoint detection, that basically if something looks dodgy at the endpoint, then it can actually come through and decline to allow that to be opened. So it's not just as simple as looking for recognized antivirus or malware specific items. It's actually looking at that behavior and what's going on that machine. It's really, really important to do this. Also, adding these routine scans really help detect any malicious software that's in place. And again, I can't overstate the importance of these things happening. And again, we can sort of flip back to this shortly as well. Let's have a look then at network security. So network security really is critical for protecting data as it travels across the network and across networks. We're going to focus on securing network infrastructure and ensuring this safe transmission in what we're going to talk about now. So network segmentation. So there are products out there now that are designed to improve security and performance by dividing a computer network into the smaller parts with a better control on how traffic flows across the network. So it's very easy to think, and part of what we do with our customers when we go in and start working with them is we have a look at their network, how is it set up? And a lot of companies will have what we call a flat network structure. So everyone is attached to one network, whether it's on Wi-Fi, whether it's cabled in LAN-wise, but it comes in and that's how they work it. So potentially someone with a guest Wi-Fi pass could get onto other items within that network as a whole and do bad things to them. So what we're trying to do is looking at implementing measures as network, something as simple as network segmentation. So the factory floor, they have one network and that's wired in. Perfect. So another part of the office, finance for say, they have their own network and that's wired in. Guest Wi-Fi have a separate Wi-Fi to everyone else. So, and the other Wi-Fi areas in the canteen might be on a slightly different network or Wi-Fi network than in the main office, for example. But that way, by segmenting it, we now have control. So it's not flat anymore, and it's something that is really important to understand. With that comes secure configurations. So what we can do with this is we can actually understand what access control there is. So if you're on this network, that's what you're seeing. If you're on this network, that's what you're seeing. There might be some crossover. Think of a Venn chart, for example, but a lot of it is separated out. And securing, having the configuration set and secured is really, really important. So this relates to devices and applications. So therefore, if people don't need access to certain applications, why let them? It just creates a potential. So that's really important as well. And then lastly, we can sort of hit on to access control. So we use a product called Threat Locker, and it does a lot, or it's one of the products that we use, and it does a lot about a lot of what I've been talking about. When we look at access control, it's a great tool for that, because we can look at access control in 4 different ways, let's say. So we can say, number one, we can just set discretionary access. So, and that's what most people have. You work for the company, therefore you're probably just going to go in and need what the company has. So the owner grants access to all users at the controller's discretion. Simple. So then we have something that we call mandatory access control, so MAC. A central authority regulates access rights and organizes them into tiers. So let's just imagine sitting at the top of the tree is the managing director. He has everything going below him. Coming down from that, we have an ops director, we have a HR director, and they only need to see what they need to see. And it's a tiering. So the person at the bottom of the tier basically only has access to certain attributes there, or systems, let's say. So, but it's tier organized. So then we have 3 role-based access. So finance need this. The project management need this, workshop need this, but it's done by that sort of business function, I'm going to say. So, and then lastly, we have something that we call attribute-based access control, and it's granted on the a combination of, I'm going to say, attributes and environmental conditions. So what does this person have to see? And that's at an individual level. Yes, they work in accounts, but I don't want them seeing what the FD is seeing. Very, very simple. And they certainly don't need to see what the shop floor is seeing. They might need to have some idea over purchase ledger. stock control, absolutely, but they might not need to see the reporting on that as well. So it's very specific. That way, what we're doing is making sure that everyone that comes into the system, the network, has the relevant access for them and them only. So Threat Locker, that's a really good tool to use. We're talking sort of about application security as well. And what we want to do is we want to keep the software and the devices as free of threats as possible. So we're understanding what's going on and if there's any sort of vulnerabilities sitting there. Really important, really important. So vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. This is something that we're seeing more and more of, and we're seeing more customers not being forced to do it, but certainly jumping onto it when we're talking about things like accreditation, even in insurance cases now. Some insurance underwriters will want these things done on a regular basis. So we use a product from Kaseya that provides us these that we self-serve ourselves. So let's have a little look into these. So essentially, we want to be addressing security weaknesses in applications before they can be exploited by attackers. So there's something called a CVE register, which is a vulnerability, common vulnerability exceptions actually register, where we can scan your internal systems to see if you have any of these known vulnerabilities in place right here, right now. And if there are, and there will be, we can then put in place the steps to go through and eradicate them as much as we physically can. Sometimes it might be with a third-party software provider, so we can actually, with you, go back to them and get that fix put in place. So it's really helping to identify these weaknesses in applications, and it's preventing potential attacks from happening. So penetration testing is something where you're now looking from the outside in. So before we're in the inside, now we're outside in. So it's kind of like looking in through the windows of a locked house. So where do I think I can get in? So it might be hitting your website. It might be hitting your shop front, for example, if you have an online shop front. And the idea is it's actually producing an attempt to break in. So it's really flexing where those weaknesses are and then coming back, presenting a report on that and helping us then go forward to enhance the security posture that's there. So again, two very, very useful systems. As I said earlier, we use a Kaseya product for these, really, really useful, and it gives some really good information. Obviously, the information is only good if we're going to do something about it. And again, that's something that we can then sit down, map, and go through. So moving on to data protection and privacy. Everyone loves this. They are cornerstones of why we have cybersecurity. So we're looking really at data encryption and secure storage. So the encryption of data means that sensitive information is unreadable to unauthorized users. So secure storage practices could be an encrypted database, for example, and it helps us keep that integrity there. It means it's unreadable to an unauthorized user, and it ensures that privacy and security. So a simple look at something like this is data encryption in Windows is a feature that enables something called BitLocker encryption automatically. And that's for the whole operating system drive and any fixed drives within there. It's particularly beneficial for everyday users, and it's just a way to store their personal information without having to manage security settings. There's also personal data encryption within Windows 11, and it utilizes Windows Hello for business link to data encryption keys as well. So again, something that's really, really important. Also, when we're talking about secure storage, we're talking about things like backup. So where is our backup? Is it on site? Do we actually have something else somewhere, a secondary system? More and more attacks now, especially ransomware, I think the latest figures are something like 75 to 80% of attacks now don't just try and find your data, they actually really try and go after your backup. So we have something that we use, as many others do, called an immutable backup. So it's written once and it's read only. So that means it's only ever written once. The next backup will go somewhere different. But if you try and look at it, that's all you can do. You can't rewrite it, therefore you can't encrypt it away if you're an attacker. So you're coming in, you can't rewrite it and lock it. So the second thing with that is it's air gapped, and what that means is it's not a direct line of sight. So it makes it even harder to try and get hold of. And as far as I'm aware, internally, that immutable backup system has never been breached. So that is something that is, can't emphasize enough in this modern age, especially with cloud. Then we're sort of hitting into this data loss prevention now. So data loss and prevention it's sort of a wording, I'm going to say. It's a concept. So a previous webinar we did was zero trust, and it's not just about a product. There's no sort of single data loss prevention product. What there is it's a mindset and a set of processes and controls around not losing our data. So, for example, Microsoft Office 365 has its own inbuilt DLP tool for cloud. So that's a layer of it, but there's various other layers that we can actually put in front of that or behind it or built in with it. So, but it's not just that tool, it's actually putting together strategies as well as the tools designed to safeguard sensitive information from breaches. Implementing these policies is crucial for organizations to protect their most valuable data. There are so many different tools and sort of software systems out there. It's trying to find the right one for you, the customer. So understanding what you hold, where it's held, and in what format, for example, becomes very important at this point in time. So, but we need to take real control over that process. Privacy laws and regulations. So again, this does hit on to the data protection side of things. In the UK, we have GDPR, sorry. There's also things like HIPAA. There's also other accreditations or things that you might be forced into. For example, if you're dealing with the MOD, you're going to need Cyber Essentials Plus, for example. So it's making sure that you're aware of what your responsibilities are to those third parties and your data, and that you build your system in that requirement. So am I GDPR compliant? Very simply, it's as simple as that. So understanding those regulations is crucial for you to manage legally and ethically your data. It also not just provides you with that compliance, but it builds that trust with your other partners because you've been transparent. So I have Cyber Essentials Plus accreditation. That means I take my data seriously. And it's vital for building those long-term relationships. User awareness and training. I cannot overstate how important this is. Your users, so your employees, let's call them, are your first line of defense against cyber threats. Training these employees to recognize and respond to security threats even enhances our security posture, or enhances the organization's security posture. Obviously, as we just said, compliance with privacy laws fosters trust and transparency with users. So, but it's vital that the education of our frontline employees takes effect. So I mentioned about this attempted fraud of £5,000, for example. It's one of those things. It's, do your employees know what they're looking for? Are they seeing an email come in and just clicking on a link? So we advise all our clients as much as possible, don't click on links. Sounds silly, but that's where the problem starts. So, and if people aren't aware of that, then they don't know not to do it. So it's something that education is really important. It builds a stronger defense mechanism against an evolving landscape as well. And it's not just a one and done, it's something that's continuous. So as new threats come in, as new whatever it may come in, it's actually making sure that those employees are educated. Also, insurance, flipping back to that as well, they are starting now to like to see that your employees have had education. By using a company such as us for a very minimal fee a month per employee, we can actually provide an audit report that if you were breached, we could actually show that that education has taken place. And that's really, really important. So we need to educate them to recognize these security threats and enhance our posture by doing so. Some best practices for safe online behavior as well: strong passwords. So no dates of birth, no children names, I got married on this date, dates of birth, important dates. Strong passwords are something where, let's say we're going to put a few random things together. So let's just say, for example, I drive a Honda, I've got a red mountain bike, and I like dogs. So it could be a cord red dog, or whatever it may be, but it's a jumble of these three different, very different things, numbers in there, and then special keys as well, exclamation marks and question marks, for example. So something that's, the house name, road, or whatever it may be, that we think is memorable, that's great, but that's very, very hackable. So make sure that we're using a strong password system ourselves, and ideally they should be changed on a regular basis. Email link caution, I mean, very, very cautious. That's massively important, as we just said. And then regular software updates. So again, part of what we do here as a business is, if we are supporting you, we go through your software and make sure it's up to date. So your Windows is up to date, and we have a internal service level agreement to ensure that that actually happens. So we're going through, checking these updates, making sure that they're done, leaving you less vulnerable. As we said earlier as well, it's really making sure that these updates are run, but also internal scans are run, these CVEs, that we're checking for these on a regular basis as well. It means that we're not just reactive, but we're actually being proactive. And then having a response, a robust incident response plan is really essential for managing our cybersecurity incidents. We don't want a cybersecurity incident, but if it happens, we need to deal with it. So, and the only way we're going to do that is by creating these response plans. We have a system, again, internally, that we can actually help you put that together. Oh, gone too far. So, an effective incident response plan outlines clear procedures for addressing cyber incidents effectively and efficiently, let's say. The plan should define specific roles and responsibilities for team members to ensure accountability during an incident. It's an effective communication of these strategies are essential for a coordinated response, ensuring all employee stakeholders are informed and aligned. This is what happens. If I clicked on a link and something odd is going on, what am I meant to do now? Speak to Lee in IT, or whatever it may be. So, but it needs to be educated and then followed. You can't really say enough about that as well. And then post-response analysis and reporting is just as crucial. We need to understand what went wrong. We need to, from that understanding, improve a future response strategies and incident planning. And we can help ensure compliance and promotes transparency through the organization. One of the things of compliance here is if you are breached, you need to notify the Information Commissioner's Office. And you want to be the one notifying the ICO. You don't want a third party notifying them or someone that's had their data breached by you. That is puts yourself in an extremely back foot position, let's say. So we want to understand what went wrong, improve the response strategy, and help prevent future incidents. Report the findings and provide better compliance going forward. Future trends, it's going to be an obvious one, but AI-driven attacks are starting to target things like IoT devices with more sophisticated threats. And IoT is something that attaches to the internet that's not a computer, let's say. So it could be as simple as an iPad. Because of this, there's a greater need for these effective defenses. They're becoming very successful, very sophisticated, sorry, but they're really targeting existing vulnerabilities as well. So again, it's really understanding where there is an issue, what I can put into layer against that vulnerability, and make sure anything that's an emerging threat that we are defending against as best as we can. Leads us into advancements in cybersecurity technologies. Artificial intelligence is something that is going to be around for a significant period of time. We're able to use that in a positive way by dealing with threat detection. We're able to make response capabilities more proactive, which makes us more efficient. And I think really coming into sort of the machine learning as well, it's actually understanding then how you work as an operator on your machine. So Matt typically logs into his machine in Tewkesbury or in Bristol, for example. Why on earth is he logging in through China? Okay, that's a problem. I'm just going to shut that machine down. Zero trust. I'm not going to take any risk on it. This is a type of software that Matt uses. Now he's trying to download this. That's not right. Therefore, and again, our threat locker system would actually make, if I was trying to do it, make me request it, and Lee would then check with me, what on earth are you doing? So by not having that in place, though, it assumes it's okay, and that's where we're open. And then also blockchain technology really does help. The advancement in it really enhances data integrity and security. It provides a decentralized approach to protecting sensitive information. And again, that makes it harder for anyone to get that info from us. That's what we want. That's what we want. So in conclusion, the importance of cybersecurity, it's fundamental to have the security in place, and it's crucial for organizations in today's digital age. We need to recognize threats. We need to be aware of what they are and help implement effective protective measures against data breaches. We need to utilize tools. It's no good just saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. What tools can we put in place to enhance our cybersecurity posture? Again, aiming at protecting all sensitive information. And then best practices. So this is where we're going to make sure that if something does happen, what are we going to do about it? And how can we reduce that risk? And how can we actually, moving forward, how can we actually ensure that it doesn't happen again? A quick survey done recently was of managing directors of companies that hadn't got a cyber or hadn't had a cyber breach, a successful breach. Something like 80% of them didn't think that their business would be down for more than a couple of days post-breach. Whereas those managing directors that had had a successful breach on their business, 100% thought that they would not be up and running within 4 days. And that's what, once bitten, twice shy does to us. So knowing what happens when it happens is something that we need to be educated about moving forward. So if you have any questions, you can email me, matthew.tucker@quintech.co.uk. You can give me a call, 01684 882 786. Drop me a message on LinkedIn. More than happy to answer any questions that you've got. Just provide some advice. If you want to know more about your business risk as well, we can provide an audit and give you some really good information based off that security audit. And again, we can help you understand exactly what that is. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your day and listening to me. And we'll be sending around a link from YouTube for this, and you can check our channel on YouTube as well, which is Quintech. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you so much for your time.